Hey everybody, this is Tracy Stewart with Girl Scouts, Spirit of Nebraska. I'm a program specialist out of our Lincoln, Nebraska office, and I'm so excited. Well, first of all, I had to wear this bright yellow because this color reminds me of our special guest, Carrie. She has been, well, she'll tell you more about this, but she's been a art venture collaborating artist with me for I don't even know how many years. It's been so long now, but she's a gem, and I get the pleasure of interviewing her today.
Oh.
So, Carrie, let's start. Tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Sure. First of all, thanks for the stunning intro. That
Absolutely.
was so nice of you. It has been such a long time that we've been doing this together.
Yeah.
I love working with you every year. You're always so organized, and you make the program so successful. And I think the girls have a lot of fun. But I grew up here in Lincoln, Nebraska. I went to school at Southeast, and then
Go Knights.
Yep, go Knights. I graduated and then went on to the University of Nebraska here in Lincoln. I thought I wanted to be an architect. And after the first or second semester, changed my mind quickly and decided that I wanted to learn more about plants. So I switched over to landscape architecture. And then the more I learned about plants, the more I decided that I wanted to grow them and not design with them. So I switched into production, and that was the degree that I ended up with. I did for your university degree, you need to do in your junior year an internship. So I went out to Oregon and did an internship at Monrovia, Oregon, and fell in love with the West Coast. Mm-hmm. And then after I graduated, I moved to the West Coast. So I ended up in California in Napa Valley, working in a couple different wineries, and then stumbled upon some art classes at the junior college out there because I just felt like I needed to continue learning, and I was feeling a little stagnant in my day job. And I ran into some glass classes and instantly got addicted. But basically did a little mixed media, oil painting, and just realized that this was this was what I wanted to pursue. Like, this was making me happy, and if I could make a career out of creating, that I would have a happy life.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. So you kind of talked a little bit about how you got into art and becoming an artist, and you mentioned a few different mediums, but talk a little bit more about the medium that you work in, or I guess, I don't know. I know well, I won't spoil it. Go ahead. Okay. Talk about your mediums, Carrie.
So yeah, like I said, I went the non-traditional route as far as being an artist, I guess. But I mean, I don't know that anybody really does a traditional route, like everybody, when you're a kid, you have this idea that you're going to go to school and you're going to go to college and you're going to get a degree, and then that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life. But I think it turns out that most of us don't actually get into the area of our degree, and our interests change throughout our life. So I think we change careers often. But as far as finding art and going to the classes at the community or the junior college out there, I had such a good time working with mixed media pieces. And it's interesting because when I started, I was working with painting, and then I found glass, which is a little bit different because most, like a lot of art, you have materials, and you take these materials and you put them on another material, you draw or you apply. So it's very two-dimensional. With glass, sometimes, it can be two-dimensional. You can create something two-dimensional, but a lot of times it becomes more sculptural. It becomes more building with your hands. It feels like you're creating something. And I'm sure a lot of artists feel like they're creating something in whatever medium that they work with, but glass just attracted me. It also has a strong link with science as far as the way that the glass, I work with the glass in the kiln. And when you put it in the kiln, it changes its physical property, but it also can change its chemical properties.
Right.
There is chemistry in there, so some of the colors will react and change into different colors when they come out of the kiln. So there's always this element of surprise, and it forces your mind, like, depending on what it is that you want to create, you can have a great idea, but you need to know how to follow through to get to that finished product. And that can be a challenge with glass sometimes, which I think is really what attracts me to it.
Sure. So then are you a full-time artist, Carrie?
So,
And then like, along with that, then like how many hours a day do you spend kind of working on being an artist?
okay, so there's a lot to what I do. A lot of people are full-time artists and devote themselves to their art, I think. But a lot of people that are also full-time artists are also teachers, maybe in the university program.
Right.
And I think a lot of full-time artists aren't really just full-time artists. I think it's rare that you're a full-time artist and you do nothing else.
Sure.
Even full-time artists that, as you want to grow yourself constantly. So you'll get involved with various organizations or take on various roles, board members, volunteering, this and that kind of thing. I actually have a really hard time staying focused on just one thing. I think if I had to do one thing 40 hours a week, no matter what it was, that I would go crazy.
Yeah.
So I have several different hats that I wear. I create my own art and I do commissions, but I'm also a teaching artist. I'm on the Nebraska Arts Council roster of teaching artists. So I teach in schools and communities. I enjoy working with kids and teaching in schools. So I actually got a certification while I was in the Bay Area, certified learning specialist or integrated learning specialist. So basically bringing art into various different educational topics, classes, math, science, English, all of that, bringing it all together, basically.
Sure.
The whole STEAM movement, right? But anyway, so I teach in schools. I develop, lesson plans. When I go to teach in schools, it's fun to learn, to make something in school, but the idea is that you're supposed to be learning something. So I try and link the glass art to various subjects. So I make my own art. I teach in schools. I also travel to teach nationally and internationally. I attend various glass conventions, and that's a lot for networking and learning for myself. So I'm always trying to learn more. And then I work at Architectural Glass Arts here in Lincoln. It's a studio. So I run their teaching classes, and occasionally I'll do commission projects through there, or, help with their retail store and keep things stocked. I'm kind of in charge of the Fuse Glass program there, or the class program there. So I'm, constantly looking for new classes that people might want to take, bring glass as a hobby to people, or even help people, have a side income or just something to keep them busy. Glass is very therapeutic in that way. And then I also work at another studio / manufacturing facility in town. Lincoln Hot Glass is a torch studio, and they're soon getting a furnace, so that'll be blown glass as well. But they also sell oxygen equipment to glass blowers, because glass blowers, when they use their torches, they need propane and oxygen. So I'm also a salesperson for them, and I help with marketing and advertising. And of course that helps, I do a lot of that for myself as well. So marketing and advertising. Oh, and I just acquired a business as well, a glue business for glass crafters.
What was that one?
A glue business. So glass crafters, various adhesives that they might need for their.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I've used these adhesives for a really long time, and I was approached by the owners, and they wanted to know if I was interested. So I said, sure, why not? I need something else.
Well, I was just going to say, so basically you need a few other things on your plate.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah. I had a few hours that were open, and who wants to sit around doing nothing?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, Carrie, you're crazy, but I love you. So if you were to sort of describe a day in your life, as far as artist and class, what's kind of your daily schedule? Do you have a regular schedule, or?
Typically I do. During the last month or so, it's been a little bit different working from home. I have to say I love it. I get a chance to kind of devote my hours depending on, my mood.
Sure.
I've got projects for me that I'm working on in the backyard. I've got projects that I need to develop for classes that I'm working on in my basement studio. But social media is a big part of my day, regardless of whether I'm working from home or not, because social media is a great way to advertise. So first thing in the morning, I'm generally checking emails, Instagram, Facebook, see what's going on, see if there are any opportunities. Social networking is really a great opportunity for marketing and getting yourself out there. So
right.
do a lot of that. And then, I'll figure out what project do I want to work on today. In fact, I think just a couple of days ago, I made this brand new pendant here.
Ooh, love it.
Yeah, thank you. So I worked on that in the basement. And, since I like to teach, but we're all kind of at home, I've been doing a lot of videotaping. So I'm trying to, kind of document my work a little bit more so that I can change it into, or, not only do I have a physical piece, then I have a virtual piece so that I can share the process with people.
Right.
And that's, I think, really important as well as an artist. If you can share your process with people, it really helps them to develop a personal connection with you. And that way you've got, folks that might be interested in buying your work, they like your work, but they also have this connection with you, which is part of the, the fascination with it all, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that really answers the question, but.
Yeah, no, definitely. So here's my next question then. Tell us, and you kind of spoke on this, but maybe elaborate a little bit on your process for kind of taking your passion for art and then transitioning or using that to become an entrepreneur. So how do you make that sort of shift?
That is a big step. And I know a lot of people, they'll do that by creating their own retail space. That has always been very, I've always been very nervous about that portion of it, because if you're making art and you're trying to make enough money to survive, but then you're also paying rent in a retail space, it's going to make things that much harder for you. So I've always been about partnering with other people. What can I give to you and what can you give to me and how can we work together?
Right.
With the architectural glass arts, that was really helpful because I have, an outside studio space. I've got other artists that I can work with and bounce ideas off of. But I don't have the extra expense of the retail outlet, but I can help them cover, some of their expenses and help them get over that hurdle.
Sure.
And then mostly it's really about getting yourself out there and building a market for yourself. When I first moved back to Lincoln, I was really interested in fused glass. I wanted to make glass, and I wanted to sell it and take it to art fairs and get in galleries and this and that. But I realized that people in Nebraska at that point had no idea what it was that I was selling or how much work went into it. So if I'm trying to make a plate for decoration and, it's got a price tag that is what it actually is worth,
right,
for me to get the materials and spend my time on it, it's generally out of the price range of anybody that's looking at it, no matter how pretty they think it is. But once people start to realize what exactly goes into it, then they start to get kind of an appreciation for it, and it makes them a little bit more willing, I think, to pay more of a fair price for it.
Right.
So that's kind of why I started concentrating on teaching people in Lincoln and in the area more about fused glass and glass art and what goes into it. And I just really like to socialize as well. So it's a nice way to socialize.
No, you don't.
And share. Yeah.
So then how did you did you have to raise money, or how did you raise funds to, I guess, start your business?
Okay, let's see. Well, I was really lucky that when I moved back to Nebraska, I seriously had no plans. And, I actually kind of moved out to California this way too. I think it's probably better to have a plan, at least a landing place, so I had a landing place. And I have a lot of money, and I didn't have a plan beyond the landing spot. But when I moved to California, I had a really great friend who allowed me to live with her and her kids for 2 months while I was looking for a job. Because seriously, I went out there with no ideas other than I want to go to California. When I moved back, it was kind of the same thing. I mean, I was lucky in that I had partnered with that glass or the glue company. I had met them at one of the conventions that I went to in Las Vegas, and they were introducing this glue to the market, but needed somebody that could tell people how to use it. And because I knew a little bit about how to use a regular camera and make video with it,
Right.
I was able to make some videos. So I had at least a part-time job that I could work on when I got back to Nebraska. And my dad let me move back in with him. So I had a place to land and I had a part-time job at least. So I had a little bit of security at least. I didn't have a lot of savings, but I had a little security as far as like, my basic needs were going to be met.
Right.
And then I could start getting creative about finding, other ways to build myself and my career. Finding a job is typically very helpful. Having a part-time job or full-time job of some sort to pay for your needs in the beginning is pretty important, I think, because otherwise you're going to be that typical starving artist. And, I think that's glamorized to an extent, but successful artists work a lot. You work a lot. And I'd say more than 40 hours a week. But if that's your career, it's generally something that you've chosen because you really enjoy it. I think starving artist isn't typical, but there are a lot of folks that don't make what they're worth in this field.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. So then marketing, how do you market yourself?
So I have a website, but a website's just a billboard if you don't push people to it, right? So Instagram, I have a couple of different Instagram accounts. One is for my personal artwork, and I created another one specifically for working with kids and in the schools and stuff, especially since, some of the things that I post may not be appropriate for the age of children that I'm working with, especially, now that kids are getting on social media. If they want to follow me, I don't want them to follow me. I want them to follow Kids in Glass so that they can see their work and the things that they were interested in, why they might want to, follow me in the first place. And then I have a Facebook page as well. And other than that, it's really just a lot of networking.
Yeah.
You can build newsletters. If, when I first came back and I did an art fair, I got juried in, and the most important thing for me at that art fair, it wasn't to sell anything. It was to make contacts and find people that might want to connect with me after the art fair. Because I was teaching it was in the fall, and Christmas is right around the corner. So ornaments are very, popular at that time of the year and very approachable. So I was able to get a newsletter, people to sign up into my newsletter list if they were interested to take the Fused Glass Snowflake class that I was offering. So I had a lot of people come through, and I didn't make my money back on sales at the art show, but I made my money back later off of the newsletter and the networking.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So and we've had a few people join us. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about how being an entrepreneur has affected your family life.
Well, sometimes, especially if you're a work at home entrepreneur, but anytime you're an entrepreneur, you spend a lot of hours at your job. That becomes kind of your partner, really. You devote a lot of time to that. And I think it's definitely a special balance in finding time or making time for those that are around you. I don't have kids, so but I do have my cat that I feel.
I know, I've seen.
I know she's been wandering around. I feel super guilty whenever I have to leave or go out of town or whatever and find somebody to take care of her. I'm lucky in that I guess not lucky, but I don't have a family that I have to worry about leaving for 2 weeks if I'm traveling somewhere. I do have a partner, but he stays really busy as well. So we're both entrepreneurs, and we both have a lot of time that we devote to our things.
Yep. Cool. Okay. So I think this question's kind of fun. So I want to know, what are the pros and cons between creating art for business versus creating art for fun?
Yes. So there are a couple different types of artists, and I'm just going to talk about commission versus production. I found out early I am not a production artist. A production artist means that you're making a lot of times the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And if I find a product that I actually love to make over and over and over, I will. I have some cute candy dishes, and I have so much fun making those. So I will make those on production level. But most of the time, I just don't feel a connection if I'm making a piece, especially if it's a piece that's been commissioned but not specifically for me to make. So for instance, working at the stained glass studio, it's nice to be able to work on stained glass windows. They do a lot of church windows or some residential commissions. But those typically aren't projects that somebody has approached me about because they like the way that I work. It's just a kind of a generic piece.
Right.
And, you know, it's nice to be able to create and I guess practice your techniques that way. But I just don't feel as much of a connection when I'm working on something that I haven't come up with the idea for.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest pro and con, because even when I'm working on a commission, it's still business. It's not for me per se. I've got a couple of pieces down at the Beatrice Public Library. They're in the basement there. They didn't have windows when they had the place redone in the basement, and they wanted to make it look like they had windows. So they wanted some stained glass windows in light boxes. And I had a great time making those. Those were, you know, they were for business, and I was able to put myself into them. You know, they approached me because they liked the style of work that they saw on my website or on my, you know, likely on my website, but on social media as well, you know. So I try and make sure that I have my work available so that people can see my style. A lot of times we'll get people that come into the studio and they have an idea of what they'd like. They maybe saw another artist's work in paint or whatever. So they'll bring a painting and say, can you make this in glass? And, you know, that's kind of it always bothers me just a touch because, one, they're asking me to copy somebody else's work.
Yeah.
I need to get permission, honestly, if I'm going to do that. But also my style may be nothing like another artist. So even if I do try and copy it, it's not going to turn out like what they were drawn to in the first place.
Yeah.
Versus, just working for myself. For myself, making things for myself is so rewarding. Especially in this time, it's been therapy for me. I've currently got a fence, my fence in the backyard.
I was hoping you were going to talk about it.
My fence has really, I mean, it's been hanging out there for 3 years waiting for me to have time. And now I finally have time and the weather's cooperating. So my neighbor put up a fence in the backyard, and the backyard used to get a lot of light and be really sunny. And then the fence went up and that area got really, really dark. And I thought, I'm going to cover it with mirror. Not the whole thing, because that would take forever. But I've got 6 posts that I'm working on. 4 of them are complete 4-foot sections with mirror and some mandala flowers that I do and a couple little fused glass flowers. But that is the kind of thing that I like to do for myself. It just makes me happy every time I see it. I'll probably be finishing that up this week, which is exciting.
That's exciting.
Finish it, glue the last bits and grout it. And then that will be, you know, a completed project and I can move on to the next one. But, you know, my goal for working for me is really just to surround myself with things that make me happy. And, you know, a lot of the things that I work on, I'm working with color. You know, I was a horticulture major. I was really into flowers and floral designs and insects and all of that. So flowers and glass and shiny things, they just make me happy. Yeah. That's awesome. And it's so fun to have glass in the windows too, because when the sun comes through, depending on, you know, if it's in the morning time or in the evening time, the sun comes through and you'll get some really nice shadows, colors, rainbows that go across the room. And so cool. When I'm working on a piece for personally, it's because it makes me really happy.
Right. Okay. So switching gears a little bit to maybe not so happy, how have you dealt with naysayers or people who, you know, didn't necessarily like support your vision or your art or becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about that question, and I really have such a hard time even thinking of anybody that hasn't been supportive. I mean, okay, so I'm really lucky in that I have I have a lot of people around me that are very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess, you know, just for example, I suppose, in approaching the new business that I decided to take on in January, this glass craft glue business, right? It was really important for me to make sure that the numbers were there, that I wasn't going to buy into a business that was going to fail if I didn't have enough time to put into it.
Yeah.
And after looking at the numbers and thinking about the amount of work that I'd have to put in and the investment, I approached my support people, the people around me, to kind of get their input and see, you know, what are the pros and cons? Is there anything that I'm not seeing? So I guess the people that, even the people around me that are the naysayers, I still take that, you know, take that into consideration, but make sure that I get enough input when I need it. Like, there's certain things that you just know and that you don't need anybody else's input for, like how to be yourself. You don't need other people's opinion on how to be yourself. You just be yourself. But if it's a project that you're taking on, and maybe you're just gung-ho to get into it and add this new thing to your resume, and you really want to do it, but maybe you don't have the time for it because you're already working like 60 to 80 hours a week, you know, things like that. You know, it's good to have those other opinions, and then take into account the naysayers when it's appropriate, when they're just trying to tell you, no, you can't do it, with no reason, or, you know, or out of jealousy, or, you know, anything like that. Then you really just have to shut it out. And social media can you know, that can happen a lot on social media too. You'll get comments that aren't so nice all the time, and feedback that's not so nice. And, you know, if that, you just can't let it bother you. It's always going to bother you. I'm sure it's a practice that you have to get past, but your art is never going to be for everybody. You're not ever going to be for everybody. You can't be worried if everybody likes you or agrees with you.
Right. Yep. That's so true. So let's talk a little bit about failing forward. So by that, I mean, you know, thinking about your mistakes that you've made, and, you know, what you've learned from them and how you've grown from them. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, that was another one that I really had a hard time with. I think we all like to forget our failures. I guess for me, the failures, I guess, would be like in my artistic practice, at least, things that I've learned from failures is, if you're attempting something for the first time with a process that you're unfamiliar with, you don't make a piece that's this big. You make a piece that's this big. Sample tiles, you know, especially glass can be a really expensive hobby or art form because the materials are expensive. And you can't always, like, if I buy a square foot of glass for a project, I'm not going to typically be able to use all of this glass for this project and maybe not another project. So it goes into the scrap bin, where I may have another project down the road for it, but not immediately. Basically, yeah, if I have this colossal project in mind, but I'm unfamiliar with the techniques that I need to use to get to the end of my idea, then it's really great to make small pieces. Because I've had, you know, I've had a piece that I've put 40 hours or more into, and then you put it in the kiln and you fire it up and you end up with this big bubble or hole right in the middle of the project, which is not what you were going for. So basically that whole piece and all of that time, I don't have to throw it away, which is nice, but it goes into the scrap bin, and I may or may not have a use for it anytime soon or ever, but it's there. So that's the nice thing about glass is I can still use it again, but the, you know, the specifics of how I'm going to use it might not turn up right away. Other than that, if I think of anything, I'll definitely let you know. But that question really, I guess, you know,
that's good.
When you get creative, failures are never failures. So you might not remember them, but you know, it's all learning. So you constantly need to challenge yourself to grow. And if you're not learning, I think that's a big failure.
Yeah, definitely. So my final question then, Carrie, is what advice would you give girls or other women who, you know, have a passion for art, or, you know, maybe they want to become an entrepreneur themselves? What advice would you give them?
Okay. When I was young, I was very shy, exceedingly shy. And my mom knew this. So, you know, I was a Girl Scout and she was my troop leader. And there's this specific phone conversation that I remember, probably going to cry about it again.
Hey, I'm a cry sister too. Don't worry about it.
You got to challenge yourself all the time. Definitely challenge yourself. Find the areas where you might not be so strong and work on that and tackle it. I was terrified of talking to people on the phone or even in person. So we went on this field trip. Pardon me.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
It's really silly too. It's just that you remember these things and you remember the way that you feel. Okay. So it's not a sad story in any way. We went on a field trip. It was about this time of year and there were a bunch of little baby chickens hatching and we went to the farm and we went to go see them. And then, afterwards, my mom thought it would be really great as a gesture to call and tell them how much I enjoyed it. Because apparently I was talking about it that much. And I was terrified. I did not want to do it at all. I couldn't believe she was going to make me get on the phone and talk to a stranger. But I did it. I probably cried the whole time I was doing it. And I survived. Well, that was still, you know, that just a one-time phone call didn't do it for me. That didn't get me over my fears. So I ended up later this is much later, getting a job at a call factory, basically. I worked for AT&T. So if you ever got those calls back in the days, sorry, but I didn't offer you $100 to switch. but taking your weaknesses and confronting them head on, I'm no longer terrified of speaking to people. Talking to strangers on the phone, not a big deal. You know, socializing especially can be hard for certain personality types, and I completely understand that. But so yeah, continually challenge yourself by doing the things that maybe aren't your strong suit. If you know, socializing with people, like I was saying, is not for everybody. Working with other people, not always for everybody. But if you can work with other people, talk to other people, then you know the chances are you're going to be able to get your ideas across. Even, you know, a lot of artists are really great at getting their ideas across either visually or if they're writing or singing or whatever, but they're not always the best at face-to-face with other people. So if you can find, you know, it can be a volunteer opportunity that maybe challenges you. A lot of nonprofits are always looking for people to help call their donors, or, you know, even, I don't know, that was just an idea that I had offhand. But, you know, if you can find volunteer activities that are going to help you challenge some of those weaknesses, some of those things that you might be scared to confront, it's really going to help you grow as a person, no matter what you do, really. But especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you really need to build your confidence and build your skill sets as widely as possible. And communication, working with other people, I think those are huge.
Yeah. That's awesome. Carrie, you're so great. I just love working with you.
Oh, Tracy, flatter me.
So I know we have a few people online. I mean, we've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. I just want to open it up. If anybody's on the line and they have any follow-up questions, you know, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question.
Yeah, and if anybody is watching this right now and you haven't gone over to the Art Venture auction page, that's all live right now. So exciting to see all the collaborations that have taken place. And I haven't been over there yet. I want to see what everybody's doing.
Yeah. I got something already, and then I did notice that your featured piece was sold, so that's pretty rad.
Wow, very cool. Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, nobody is